Hello, everyone, and welcome on this Monday, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It is a pleasure to have you with us as we are doing the first inaugural webinar for our pollution law specialist group in terms of introducing ourselves and you to the program, and answering your questions and familiarizing you with this next step in the next 5 years of WCL planning and work. It is my pleasure to be opening this. I am Dr. Alexandra Harrington. I am the chair of the Pollution Law Specialist Group for WCL. Many of you may know me from the previous iteration of this, which was the task force on the plastic pollution treaty, which has now been rolled into the larger pollution law specialist group. So we're very grateful to WCL for that. And without any further ado, I will turn over first to our vice chair, Ayman Shirkawi, and then we will introduce our work program a bit more and then get some questions and dialogue with you. But first of all, for words of wisdom and advice from Ayman, please, give you the floor. It is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Alex. I promise words. Whether they will be of wisdom, I am not quite sure, but there will be words at least. So it is my pleasure to be part of this latest webinar in the Work Commission Environmental Law series, devoted today to one of the most fundamental yet often overlooked fields of environmental governance, pollution law, and to do so alongside Dr. Alexandra Harrington and Dr. Angelique Pouponneau, who lead the Pollution Law Specialist Group as chair and deputy chair and will indeed guide us through this session. A few words first on where the session sits within our commission. WCL brings together almost 1,500 members across 12 specialist groups and two task forces in every region of the world. In May of last year, I had the pleasure of hosting at the Hassan II International Center for Environmental Training, the fourth World Congress Environmental Law in Rabat, with some 2,000 participants, 200 speakers, and 66 countries represented. That gathering confirmed that legal expertise has become one of the principal drivers of the global environmental agenda. Integrated legal protection of air, ocean, and land was the very theme of the entire Congress. The Pollution Law Specialist Group sits at the heart of that agenda. Pollution of air, water, soil, and the marine environment remains one of the most fragmented and unevenly regulated dimensions of the triple planetary environmental crisis. It has too often been treated as a technical question of standards and compliance. In reality, it is the legal bridge between climate action, biodiversity protection, contamination undermines climate resilience and biodiversity integrity at the same time. The work of this group is therefore central to making environmental law coherent as a whole. Allow me to speak briefly from my other vantage point as director of the Hassan II International Center for Environmental Training, the academic arm of the Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection, chaired by Her Royal Highness Princess Al Hasna. What we see on the ground in Morocco and across Africa confirms why this specialist group matters. Marine and coastal pollution is where the Foundation's operational expertise run deepest. Through Clean Beach Operation, now entering its third decade, the Foundation and its partners work each summer through hundreds of Moroccan beaches in dozens of coastal communes. And this year, Morocco has a record with 38 blue flag beaches. Alongside it, the Harba Plastic Campaign against marine plastic pollution, now in its sixth edition and endorsed by the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, mobilizes citizens, local authorities, and private partners around a single message: a sea without plastic. Recognition matters as much as mobilization, and in that sense, the Lela Hesna Sustainable Coastline Trophies play an important role. I share this example to make a point about the relationship between law and practice. Every one of these programs eventually run into a legal question. Who is responsible for waste that arrives on the beach? How do municipal bylaws, national coastal legislation, and international instruments interact when a local authority wants to ban single-use plastic? What legal tools allow environmental education commitments to become enforceable standards? Field programs generate the questions, and groups like the specialist group generate answers. This is the bridge between a training center at Bouknadir and a specialist group internationally convened from every continent. It is why the center stands ready to serve as a platform for this group's capacity building work in Africa and beyond. This is also a moment of real legal momentum. Advisory proceedings before the ICJ, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, and regional courts have affirmed repeatedly that protecting the environment is legal obligation closely bound to human rights and to future generations. WCEL has contributed expertise to several of these processes. Pollution law must now claim the same space, translating scientific consultations further on contamination and harm into enforceable obligations, from the Global Plastic Treaty, inshallah, to national air quality legislation. I want to warmly again recognize the leadership of the specialist group, Dr. Harrington and Dr. Pupono, bring exactly the rigor and international breadth this agenda demands. And I look forward to Dr. Harrington's presentation on the task force previous work and the work plan going ahead. I also thank Dr. Karen Sigwet and the IUCN Center for Policy and Law for anchoring our specialist groups within the union's institutional processes further. So my invitation as we open this new mandate is simple. Let us treat pollution law not as a subset of climate or biodiversity work or other topics, but as the legal discipline that binds them, and let us connect doctrine to the field and the field back to doctrine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Ayman. And it really is heartening to hear those words and that commitment, because it is the reason that we created the specialist group, that we wanted to create the specialist group, and that leadership was kind enough to give us that so that we can now have this as a much broader discussion and that we can talk about linkages, but we can also talk about pollution law itself and all of the many impacts that we know are felt throughout the world. And if I can just go back to several years ago to say how special it was to be at the center with you and to see the work that you were doing. And I know it's continuing, and I'm certain that we will continue that partnership on together, because seeing it on the ground is, of course, something that we all need, I think, a reminder of periodically. And having this convocation of so many people and looking at the list of participants now from so many different places giving their perspectives on pollution will be vital to how we move this forward. So thank you, Ayman. Thank you all for joining us from so many places. Before I get into myself, because many of you know me already, I would like to give the stage to our new doctor, Dr. Angelique Papineau. I love saying that. I really do. And huge congratulations for that. To introduce yourself and give any perspectives you would like.
Thank you very much, Alexandra Ayman, for really setting the scene. And just to introduce myself, so my name is Angelique Pupono, and I'm from Seychelles, which is an island in the Western Indian Ocean. I've got to say, hearing the introduction by Ivan started to make me reminisce about how I started in the space of addressing plastic pollution. I remember being perhaps 12 years younger, and running a youth-led NGO, where we were campaigning to have single-use plastic bags banned in the Seychelles, which involved a lot of cleanups, research, and so on, and was really taken by the issue of transboundary marine plastic pollution, which then led me into doing a master's in environmental law, where I deep dived into elements of land-based marine pollution, and how it's moved across ocean and onto the shores of small island developing states. But nevertheless, that was the the nostalgia brought back by Ayman's scene setting, and I thank you for that, because it highlights the importance of the work that's done on the ground, but also the importance of the doctrinal work that we continue to push, especially as it relates to pollution law. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to vice chair the group. And really keen to contribute in terms of my experience with pollution law itself. I am someone who's participating in the negotiations of the Global Plastic Pollution Treaty. I know negotiations are ongoing, as Ayman says, inshallah, that we will get the treaty completed. And as well as, of course, legal research that I've done in the past in relation to this area. But very happy to be with you all. And I will put my video on off now, but we'll be at least listening keenly to what we have in store. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelique. And I really cannot overstate how happy I was that you were willing to be the vice chair for this specialist group as we're starting from the beginning, really, and working upwards. It was the first thought that came into my mind was to ask for you. So I'm so glad that you are here and joining on this adventure, really, which is what it will be. Briefly, for those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Alexandra Harrington. I am currently in Montreal for at least the next month, and based in McGill as a visiting scholar, and have been in England beforehand for, I cannot believe I'm going to say this now, but for 4 years. I have been either the chair of the Agreement on Plastic Pollution Task Force for IUCN WCL and now into the Pollution Law Specialist Group. So some of you know me very well from that context. I am going to now share my screen just to do a little bit of a presentation that I have for you on kind of where we came from and then what our future is looking forward. Um, there we are. Sometimes I'm able to make this work. Sometimes I'm reminded that I went to law school because of my technical inabilities. Anyway, um, but what I would like to explain from the beginning is that we are a specialist group founded in the work that we were very kindly asked to do and tasked to do as a task force for the negotiations for the Global Plastics Treaty in the beginning. And I cannot start any discussion of the Pollution Law Specialist Group without a huge thank you to Simi Payne and to the Oceans Law Group, because we started off actually as a portion of the Oceans Group, due largely to the fact that when the resolution from UNEA, so 514, was initially adopted in 2022 to give us the framing for the negotiations on the plastics treaty. Much of the focus was on the idea of this being plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. And at the time, we also had just seen the BB&J agreement going into its final stages for adoption. So this was very much something that came out of the Oceans Law Group and then became its own freestanding entity. But I really cannot say enough my gratitude to Simi for recognizing that and suggesting this, and then to Ayman and Christina for giving us the platform with the task force itself. And the task force, from the time it was founded in 2022 onwards, has worked very closely with IUCN headquarters, especially what we call the CPL, which is the Center for Policy and Law, to be part of the negotiations and to participate in the negotiations for the plastics pollution treaty. We also have been working in a number of other treaties. Until we had our own pollution law group, it was really in the narrower sense of looking at the pollution and plastic connection. So we participated in a number of different meetings, conferences of the parties, also open-ended working groups, etc., for the combined Basel Convention, Rotterdam Convention, and Stockholm Convention conference of the parties, which happens every 2 years. Also for the Minamata Convention. We were present at the SAICM negotiations process, which led to the Global Framework on Chemicals in 2023. And then also in the negotiations and lead up to the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution. And I've also been involved in its first, at least, meeting, which took place this year in Geneva and has been continued on to a point into the future. All of these were done with a very, again, plastics focus. But what we realized in having this presence and in doing our work, and the work of the task force was really to do two things. It was to provide legal expertise and guidance in the form of legal briefs, also holding a number of different webinars and training events, including in conjunction with IUCN headquarters for a project that we were very lucky to be a part of, that was funded and supported by the government of Norway, where we were working directly with 5 different countries in West Africa for their negotiation strategy and then implementation. And then we have been very lucky, and I believe we will continue to be lucky enough to at least have one seat in the IUCN official delegations to all of these negotiations. This is, of course, always a problem in the sense that the official cap on members or on seats that any observer member of any of these entities has is usually 5. Sometimes it's less. So we typically only have one person going from the task force and now from the specialist group as part of the IUCN delegation, but that does not mean that the work of all people involved in either the task force or now the specialist group goes unrecognized. And certainly we have a number of information products that do come out before any of these negotiations that really are very helpful to our members as IUCN to our members. And our members are, of course, states as well as organizations and individuals. So we do have the opportunity to provide advice to any states that ask us for it. And we have received a number of very positive statements in the plastics context, and now with the growing awareness that we have a pollution law specialist group from states who really appreciate that we are here to be the voice of neutrality, that we present the unbiased understanding of what international law is in the environmental context, that we explain what international law has done, what it may do in the future, and provide guidance to countries that ask us for that type of guidance. So we very much have in this space become a quickly growing actor, and we do anticipate that in the future. I should point out that I am hoping we will be joined by Dr. Karine Siebert from the Center for Policy and Law. I am not entirely sure that she will be joining us because I do know she is currently on a very, very well-deserved holiday with her family. So if she is unable to join us, please know that she is our truly wonderful main contact at the Center for Policy and Law, and we have forged a very strong working relationship that I am confident will continue on into the future. So that will really be able to help us in our work and in disseminating our work through IUCN headquarters as well. Say again, how many years have we been doing these? And I still figure out how to advance too far. I wanted to give you a flavor of some of the things that we have done recently with headquarters, so you get a sense of what we have been doing, certainly in the plastics pollution context and what is possible. So we will be doing in the pollution law group our continued policy work and our continued legal work and legal analysis. But we do periodically have the options or good fortune, again, to work with headquarters for projects from time to time. And when those projects arrive, they really have allowed us to entrench ourselves very deeply in the pollution law world at the international level. So the first project that we had, which was one that actually began in 2022, very shortly before the first Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee meeting for the Plastics Treaty, was what we called AFRIPAC, which was actually a joint IUCN and Grid Arendal project, where we, on our end, provided legal trainings, workshops in person, often in country, briefings and analysis, and also on-the-ground advice to countries from West Africa. So 5 countries in particular: Guinea-Bissau, Cabo Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. This project continued until the end of INC 5.2, which was unbelievably almost a year ago already in Geneva. And unfortunately, due to changes in some of the funding priorities, the project has not been renewed for the second tranche. However, we are still working very closely with those countries. Indeed, I still do work with Guinea-Bissau on the legal drafting group for the plastics pollution treaty. So those relationships have really been entrenched, and they are relationships that we do continue to work with, and we will continue to build on. And what we also noted in this context is that those countries in particular are very eager for legal advice, legal trainings of their negotiators, also trainings of the departments in which all of these types of treaties will be either placed when we have inshallah, the Global Plastics Treaty, or in the future, as we work towards things relating to, say, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm, etc. We also did have a smaller offshoot from the AfriPac project, which was a very small grant from NORAD to help us work with those countries again at UNEA 7. So what we've seen is also a really broadening understanding that we can do many different types of trainings. And this will be something that we are doing moving forward, not only having our briefing documents and our legal analysis documents for the negotiations themselves, but also being able to provide these as trainings to the countries that request them, to organizations that request them, and opening them up to general public, which will certainly be one of the pillars that we have. And the other pillars will, of course, be much more research focused and not as necessarily negotiations driven, but also research focused. One other thing to explain is that we were lucky enough to work very closely with the World Conservation Congress during World Conservation Congress, and we had a number of different opportunities to really become part of the negotiations process there as well. So when we're moving into the next phases of our work program, many of them I wanted you to see that many of them were really influenced by the very intense work that we did, that I had the opportunity in particular to do, working as a facilitator for a number of different motions, including those relating to ecocide, as well as safeguarding biodiversity and human rights, particularly in the energy transition, mineral governance context, and also, of course, welcoming the International Court of Justice advisory opinion on climate change. So these are all things that really do play a larger background in our work as well. And many of these do tie in directly because they were successfully adopted into the work that we will be doing for the next coming years. So without any further ado, I give you the four core pillars of our work plan. If you are looking at the website, for example, and I must say a huge thank you to Roberto for many things, many, many, many things. The website is certainly one of them. And for those of you who don't have a bit of a background, Roberto, I'm not sure if he's going to be thrilled that I explained this, but poor Roberto was in an accident several weeks ago now. He's doing all right. He is recovering, but despite that accident, he has been present and working constantly and doing everything that we need. So I just wanted to give him a huge shout out and thank you. Now, especially as I was looking at the website the other day and it looks fantastic. So thank you very much, Roberto. And please continue your recovery so that we can have a very good-natured rivalry between England and Argentina on Wednesday for the World Cup. Anyway, it had to come in. It's just that time of year. But we have four core areas of our work plan for 2025 to 2029. The first obviously comes in the heading of plastic pollution, and that is where we came from. So I apologize, I have two screens going, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't have any questions there. But no, Roberto's saying he's well recovering, so that's a good thing. We will continue our work. Now, for those of you who have been following the INC process, you will know that it has become quite a process and that it was meant to end officially, we thought, in 2024. It is still very much ongoing. And so we just had in February, INC 5.3, which was to elect a new chair. The heads of delegation meeting was held in Nairobi last week. We are anticipating a new text, a new negotiating text that will be used for INC 5.4 to come out at some point. So we will, of course, be providing legal analysis for this. And we will be providing assistance to the general legal community in the form of open-ended briefings as well as to any countries that do ask, those that we have been working with, as well as any others that are interested in advice and in guidance up until INC 5.4 and beyond. I should also stress for some of you who are interested in the youth aspect that we have been very closely working with the Children and Youth Major Group in the UN system and UNEP system, especially the Youth Plastics Action Network. So we have a very strong relationship with youth groups in this context, in this presence, and we do a great deal of training with them. I've actually been lucky enough to co-found, along with the Youth Plastics Action Network, what we call the MEA Boot Camp, which is something that we'll continue to do, where we train a number of negotiators and others who will be attending various INCs and other COPs and meetings in what they need to know about the legal structures and the procedural structures relating to those activities in advance. And we've found that this is actually something that is very much missing for many national delegations, as well as for observers in civil society. And so we've actually had the opportunity to train representatives from some countries that have asked us to do special trainings separately as well. So that will be continuing. But for as long as the process takes, we are committed to being in the plastics treaty negotiation process, and then we hope in the future in its implementation phases as well. So that will always be one of our core pillars. And I do see, looking at the groups of people who are here, that we do have several veterans of that. I see Eleonora in particular, several other veterans of the plastics process with us. So we all tend to stay together. But in addition, we have three other areas of focus. And the second area is on the overarching topic of chemicals, pollution, and hazardous waste. As I mentioned previously, we have been working, and I see I had a typo in there because clearly, why wouldn't I double check? We have been working with IUCN headquarters to establish our presence in a number of different pollution bodies. And I will say that in the beginning, it was actually quite difficult. In the beginning, we had a number of questions from people in, especially Basel, in the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm context, in Minamata, about why we, as IUCN, were present in these negotiations, because we tend to be thought of as a conservation entity. And so it would make sense to many people that we were present for climate change and present for biodiversity, but why were we there for pollution? Fortunately, we were very quickly able to change many of those questions and many of those views by producing very quickly a large number of legal briefs, legal drafts that explained issues and also explained the nexus with, for example, conservation and biodiversity. So now we have actually become very well known in these spaces. We have often side events, official side events, or outside of the venue side events for these, and our advice is continuously sought. So this is an area that we will continue to grow. We will, of course, be expanding this, and we anticipate that we'll be looking into things like mining and minerals, as well as looking at the nexus between chemicals, hazardous waste, and plastic pollution. This is an area where we certainly will be anticipating much more academic growth, as well as the legal briefings and the negotiations response. So it is certainly an area where we would welcome those who would like to either contribute to ideas we have for studies or for legal articles, and also to come and bring your own advice or your own suggestions for things you might want to do as part of this group and as part of this heading, so that we can really have the double prong of the academic work as well as the negotiating and practical work come out very strongly in this particular topic. And the third topic itself is, of course, mining, minerals, and metals. Now, I should mention that when we first started in the plastic space and we first started working as a task force in pollution overall, we were invited to join several UNEP consultations about mining and minerals, not only critical minerals, which is, of course, where many people tend to go in their minds, but also questions of how we regulate the pollution aspect of the mining process, and looking at it from an environmental and pollution lens rather than from, for example, a more human rights and labor-focused area lens. These groups, these meetings that were convened were really done under the auspices of the UNEA 5 and UNEA 6 resolutions. What we have seen is that the anticipated result of those resolutions, which for many was an effort to perhaps have an additional treaty process authorized for this, has not happened yet for a variety of geopolitical and other reasons. But this is still work that is very much ongoing. It is very much important. And it's an area where we do believe that the Pollution Law Specialist Group can come and step in and provide analysis, provide studies, and in-depth research from a legal perspective that will explain the need for regulation, the types of options for regulation internationally, also regionally, and of course domestically, how this could relate to existing treaties, as well as where we would need to have separate either strengthening of regional or national laws, or we would need to have some other form of either treaty or framework, etc., suggested for these topics. We have had particular interest coming from various people as to our expertise and feelings on lead and also arsenic, cadmium, and organotins, something that my spell check will never get used to, at the international level, often in conjunction with Minamata, but moving outwards, which really does also stress the importance that we are seeing here of the science policy interface, and this is cross-cutting throughout all of our topics, is the need to have a discussion that includes science and scientific elements, as well as, of course, the legal element. And it is something that we can do as a specialist group with those of you who have many different forms of backgrounds and trainings, as well as being able to call on the knowledge and the expertise from scientific experts throughout the IUCN community. And finally, if my slides want to work, we do have one more area of our focus for the work plan. And this area is really cross-cutting issues. So it is a series of areas that we have identified as being cross-cutting throughout all of the treaties that we are working on and will continue to work on, as well as the issues raised by pollution law itself. And these are areas that we know have a nexus with pollution, often linking directly to biodiversity, if not directly to human health or both. And so we are looking in this area for both academic as well as practical negotiations, documents, briefing studies. And the clusters tend to focus on things like, for example, One Health. One Health and human health impacts connected to various forms of pollution obviously are very important. The environmental impact clearly has an impact on biodiversity as well. We know this. We have IUCN resolutions themselves that look at things like One Health and call for advancing One Health to help and to protect global biodiversity as well as global health and cooperation. And we do intend to build on this to understand how One Health as a concept, which is still quite controversial in some areas. So of course, there is also the need to really look at One Health itself and the legal parameters of One Health as well, but how the concepts of One Health can be mainstreamed or understood within a variety of different treaty regimes, also at regional levels, because we do know that One Health has a very positive aspect. It also comes with often a great deal of financial burden and cost. So understanding the legal parameters will be very important to understanding what needs to be done with this. There will be a discussion as well, or a cross-cutting theme on human rights and pollution. We, of course, have other specialist groups and other task forces working on human rights, and we will work very closely with them on this, and also for our next bullet point as well. But it is something that we really know is at the core of pollution law and the pollution issue is how do actions that cause pollution, that give rise to pollution, as well as the results of pollution, impact on human rights? And then how do we design legal practices and responses, and also hopefully preventative measures that take into account human rights concerns, as well as the human rights impacts that come from acts of pollution and their long-term and short-term impacts. So this is something that we will be continuing to focus on. I anticipate we will have a great deal of academic work on this, some more in-depth studies, and then also, of course, we will continue to talk about mainstreaming those into our briefings as we prepare for various negotiations. And finally, and this is one that I know, Eleonora, you will be interested in because of some aspects of this. There is the idea of working with headquarters, also working with other specialist groups, but to examine the explicit connections between environmental crimes and also concepts such as various types of litigation and pollution. So how do we regulate pollution when we think of it as an environmental crime? For example, a recent piece that I had published in the conversation on looking at acts of war or acts taken during wartime that have very strong pollution impacts for long term. How do we think about those in the framing of environmental crimes, not as ecocide, but as separate forms of crime? And then also thinking about ideas such as litigation, for example, or other types of compliance mechanisms as methods of entrenching pollution law as a specialist area, but then also compliance and regulatory systems coming around pollution law. So we have obviously a great deal of work ahead of us. We have all of these cross-cutting issues to discuss, as well as the larger and broader issues that we have in our work plan. If any of this is of interest to you, of course, the greatest question is, how do you get involved? And I'm looking, I have two screens, I apologize for looking over, but I see several questions about how do you get involved or join. That is, of course, the way that we are trying to get you involved, and that is to say, please join WCL. And then after that, you can indicate your interests, and we will, of course, be very delighted to have you as part of the specialist group. So that is step number one. Step number two is really to encourage you all not to be shy. I see some people suggesting things in here, and this is wonderful. Please let us know your interest areas. Please let us know what parts of the work plan are interesting for you, what parts would be areas where you would either have expertise that you would like to contribute or would like to grow your expertise. And we will, of course, work with you on those. Engage in our work plans, engage in our studies. And we are very happy to have any contribution of time that we can from you. So please don't feel that if you have very limited time, you're unable to join, or that you should wait until you have more time. Any time contribution, any expertise that you can give is critical, especially as we are really starting from the ground up. And also, if you're not able to assist in the academic work or the research work yet, assist in our events. Help us host an event or come or volunteer as a speaker, suggest collaborations for us. We are happy to really take any forms of ideas that you have and to work with you on them. And also, one other thing, help us with social media, especially for those of you who are certainly younger and more savvy in this than perhaps I am. Help us with our social media outreach and help us with visibility and awareness, and also connections to groups that you think are important for us to work with. Because what we do really know is that coming into this space, moving into it quite quickly, we have a great deal of information as WCL and as our experts that we can share and that is very valued. But the question is, how do we get it to all of the various constituencies that need it most? So things like social media, things like having connections with various groups. I mentioned the youth as a really critical example here, will help us to build the specialist group and will help us to get as many voices as we can in the specialist group. I should also point out, and I will stop sharing my screen and then get to some of your questions, because I see we still don't have Corinne. So that time that we would have had for her, I will just kind of yield to everyone for questions. But I should also point out that we do have some interest from UNEP and others in experts who are within the specialist group who have expertise in especially the regulated chemicals for Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm. So, for example, if you do have that expertise, please let me know, and I'm happy to figure out how we can work on projects for that as well. It really is a new and developing specialist group, and it's one where we want you to be as much part of it as you can, and as we can make sure that you are a part, so that we build it in a way that is reflective of all the interests and all the expertise that we have from our members. So I have been speaking for a dreadfully long time. Um, and so now I just want to take a quick look and see what questions we have. Roberto has been answering them all quite well. But if anyone does have a question that they would like to ask, let's see. Oh, Justice. Now I should mention in the comments here, Justice is a good friend of ours, and we have spent many hours together in negotiations for the plastics treaty. So it's lovely to see you. Um, I would rather see you in person. But anyway, this is a great way to reconnect. We can support legal training workshops in many ways. So we can talk about this, of course, more in depth privately. I will message you. But what I think we can really think about here is the design of these, what expertise we have, what you need for the judiciary, what types of trainings you need, if it's in international law, if it's in domestic law or regional law, connections with various types of treaties that exist now, as well as what could come up in the future. So we can plan this, and this is something that we have developed a great deal of expertise in terms of advising ministries and in terms of advising national organizations. For example, let's see, towards the end of last year, so November into December, we did a 5-week long training with the government of the Bahamas, where we actually did training for their environmental officers who would be putting into place various types of environmental legislation surrounding the potential plastics treaties, so trying to figure out what they would need to do nationally to then put that those obligations in place, as well as a number of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm options. So we can do these types of trainings. And this is something that absolutely will be part of our remit. So Justice, I will message you more later. And Warren, I am putting you on a list now. This is excellent. Congratulations, Warren. You are newly on my list. We will be speaking about One Health, but that excellent. Thank you. Heli, who, for those of you who don't know Eleonora Dantusu, she is from CL, and she is a wonderful partner and collaborator. We have worked together on many things, especially relating to plastics. And I know that she is very interested in the litigation aspects of cross-cutting, so she will most likely be our lead for that. And she will have many ideas for us in the future. So I don't know, Helly, if you can actually speak. I'm guessing not because of the webinar format, but she will be working with us for that. And I'm just looking to see if there are any other comments or questions. I should note I had a comment from Angelique that she did have to leave for another meeting, but sends her regards to everyone and is looking forward to working with you all as well. I don't see any other questions here. I should mention, just in terms of what is coming up for the landscape of certainly the treaties that we know, that the processes that we know, to give you a sense. We have at the moment for plastics, we have the second heads of delegation meeting, which will be taking place in September in Bangkok. We anticipate that the next actual negotiation round, so publicly open round, will be next year. So it will be approximately March 2027. Will be INC 5.4. The venue has yet to be determined, but we do know that this is the plan, at least at the moment. This will be a highly fluid situation. It has been from the beginning, and we will be doing a lot of very, very rapid time analysis because it is an ongoing negotiation. we do have a bit more of a time for reflection and for academic study for the existing conventions and treaties, obviously because they have a COP process, but it is not as rapidly emerging as the negotiations have been for plastics, which really have required quite quick responses to questions that are often very tailored. In terms of the landscape for other treaties, next year we have in 2027 the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention of the Conference, pardon me, of the Parties, which will take place for the first time outside of Geneva. It will take place in Panama in May of 2027. And then we also have the Minamata Convention Conference of the Parties, which will take place next fall in Geneva. Those are COPs that happen every 2 years, and so we will be working with them. In November this year, 2026, we will have the first conference of the parties, full conference of the parties for the Global Framework on Chemicals. That is something that we will be present at, we will be working at quite actively. We have a number of relationships with various youth groups as well. So we will be doing a number of trainings in advance for that. That will be something that will be very interesting. There will be a number of non-technical topics I know on the agenda, especially rules of procedure. And for those of you who've attended the various webinars that we've done after the INCs, you will know that, of course, rules of procedure have become quite important tools of negotiation in a number of different environmental law contexts, especially in plastic pollution. 2027 most likely will also be the UNEA year. Again, we do not have UNEA this year. And we will at some point have another meeting, we believe, of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel for Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution. We don't know when yet. That first meeting happened in February of 2026. It ended without resolution on largely most issues. So we will have to continue that as a 1.2, but we are still awaiting the date and the location for that in the future. But all of this is to say there are a number of different convention meetings coming up and COPs as well as negotiations coming up. So we really do have a very good amount of work to start with from the beginning. And there are many intersections where we can join and have conversations. I am not seeing any other questions. Yannick, I do see interest from you, so that's wonderful. And Tracy, I'm happy to make a list, and I think what we can do is circulate the list, certainly amongst those who are on the call, because if I type it out, it will probably take me a lot longer. So no one wants to hear the clacking of the keys. But absolutely, definitely. Now, again, the one thing I do want to mention is that IUCN has a presence in all of these meetings. Typically, what happens is that we will have one representative who was able to join from WCL, who is able to join, who has been kind of trained as a negotiator, who then works with IUCN, who will go, and then we will have a number of people who are supporting and providing background and information. But we don't have enough seats on an IUCN delegation to accommodate everyone typically who is interested in going. So that is the one caveat I would typically give. And yes, the complete list of thematic groups, Martina, I'm not sure if you mean for all of WCL as an entity. That is certainly online on our website. But if you also want the breakdowns of the different groups throughout the specialist group, we have those online as well. But I'm of course happy to send you the work plan. And Roberto, do you have anything else we should address or any other thoughts? And Antoine, I should mention, I'm very glad to see Antoine also spent several hours with me in a very warm and steamy August in Geneva last year. So Antoine, I'm glad to see you joining us. And I'm curious to see how your research went. This is the benefit of the negotiations process, is you often have downtimes, and during the downtimes, you get to talk to each other and make friends. But Roberto, is there anything else I should address or anything else we need to tell people about the membership process?
Hi. No, anything, just apply. I will put on the chat the link to apply. It's also on the website. But no, I think you've mentioned everything. If you're already a commission member, please send an email to wcel@iucn.org and we'll help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. I'll open up for any final questions. If not, I am happy to free you to continue your Mondays, mornings, afternoons, or evenings as they were. Let's see, I'm not seeing any others. I do. Oh, thank you, Roberta, for putting that in the chat. And even if you do have any other questions, you're not sure yet if you would like to join, but you have questions, please do let us know. I'm always happy to talk, as is Angelique. So we're always happy to talk with you and see your ideas, also your time commitment levels. If you are not certain that you have a great deal of time, but you do want to join, we're happy to talk about that as well. So please don't feel that that you would need to wait until you have more time. We're always happy to have people in any capacity that you could give. We're more than grateful for. And thank you, Roberto, for adding that. If you are not yet a WCL member, please do join. We are a very intense but also very fun group of people who tend to become a family quite quickly. So, please do join, and we would be very happy to have you, and to follow up with you on that. Otherwise, I think, Roberto, are we set?
Yes, if you don't want to add anything else, we're good.
All right, excellent. Well, I never want to hold anyone in a room for a longer period of time than absolutely necessary. So go, and we have several minutes before we're scheduled to end. So go, stretch, get a coffee, do something. But thank you very much for joining. I look forward to working with many of you. Thank you, Ayman, for taking the time to join us when I know you just got to New York and probably are very tired. And thank you to Roberto for all of your work in the middle of the recovery. And we just want you to get better and be back to normal. And no matter who wins, England or Argentina, we will continue to send you all of our best wishes. And of course, thank you to Angelique for being part of this, and to Karine, who is such a staunch ally in IUCN headquarters. So all of you, please be well. I look forward to working with many of you in the future. And thank you all. Take care.